do me and do you a favor. Take a little bit better posture. Breathe in deeply a few times, because it's been a long day, and I sense that the energy starts to be a little low. So you all will have focus for the next 20 minutes. But let's start. My topic today is our symbiosis with our environment. And I've been listening to the talks today and picking up some ideas from other speakers. First of all, I'd like to give you quite a visual presentation because I always like the technology to be able to actually get a better limbic resonance for us. So we think about in pictures, and this is kind of the way that I want to present things today. My name is Jaakko, and I was thinking about many angles how you can relate to symbiosis, because we've been in symbiosis with everything since the beginning of time. First thing that came to my mind is our symbiosis with other people around us. And as Kaspar's stated, it's kind of our connection to other people is kind of a supplement. I didn't know there was music, but good to hear. So, from the beginning, we've been on this earth because we came out of it. We're not visitors here. I like how Alan Watts put it. So oftentimes, I love nature and spend a lot of time there. When I see people equipped with too much stuff when they go to nature, it's almost like as an analog to astronaut exploring a new territory with a shit ton of different stuff with him or with her, because you're a stranger in that environment. So in a sense, I want to remind you, as Kiki put it earlier today, you are the essence of nature. So that idea, whenever we relate to our environment, we are in control. We are here. We're from this planet. So everything that we've created, how we put together cities, how we relate to nature, it's all because of us. And symbiosis has many forms. And in biology, there are parasitic, symbiotic relationships. There are many different ways how we interact with different organisms and how different organisms relate with each other. And Ali said that be a buyer, not a seller. And I like that idea. Whenever you're relating with somebody or something, are you amplifying? Are you giving more energy into it? Or are you taking out of it? So I thought about, like, many times today, somebody comes by and asks, like, how are you doing, and so on. But I always think, like, does that person actually mean it? What is the intention? So what cool takeoff would be that next time, for the next week or two, think about whenever you're asking somebody, how are you feeling? Do you actually mean it? Are you actually interested about that person? Or are you just thinking about something else? So there are so many immediate symbiotic relationships where we can sense, do we get more out of it, or are we just kind of focusing on something else? And I wanted to talk today about a few kind of meta-level ideas, almost philosophical ideas in regards of our relationship with our environment. Elements, kind of the classical elements, and kingdoms of life were kind of the highest structures that I kept thinking. So I will present you 7 ideas that are linked from different elements and different kingdoms of life. I won't go through all of them, but these are kind of my personal favorite that taught me a lot over the years. So, first of all, I like this picture as a kind of a reminder that for most of us, how we relate to the environment is not anymore that much attached to our kind of natural environment, in a sense how our biology has evolved for past few 100,000 years. So this is a photo from my high school biology book. I figured this out from, I don't know what type of lecture I was giving, but I found this photo very interesting. The text is in Finnish, but the point is that if we continue in this path, biologically, we're not making ourselves stronger and more adaptable and more vigor, but we're actually losing that kind of strength, that adaptability that, for example, Kiki was kind of showing us. We still have this side inside of us, and we can tap into these things. So when I think about biohacking, most of the best tools are more or less related to kind of major biological systems, and we go back to the nature, we go back to the mirror that is reflecting kind of the past. And I will go at the later part of this presentation more into our relationship with technology, but right now I want to focus on a few things. Whenever I sit down and think about what is actually necessary, what is actually meaningful when it comes to things that we can do to our bodies, things like the quality of air are not just some like, well, it's probably a good idea to open your window every now and then. That's primary. That's one of those things that impacts your health, your mood, pretty much more than anything else in your immediate environment. I often think about it like if you'd have a fish in a tank and you'd feed it the best food in the planet, but the water quality was low, wouldn't matter. So we're in this tank of air. We're breathing like 10,000 liters of air every day. And this is just a reminder because I've been observing this community and many other communities, and I still see that not too many people are taking this seriously. But the other part that this air thing links me into is the kingdom of plants. So of course, we've been evolving with plants for a long time. We breathe out carbon dioxide, plants alchemically convert it to oxygen. And this is the thing that we do. When we are in offices, in cubicles, we bring in the plants from our natural habitat. Like if you think about zoo, you have animal in the zoo, you want to make sure that it has all the things that it is surrounded in wild nature, in its natural habitat. So we're kind of bringing certain elements from something that's innate in our spirit, so to say. So this blows my mind, how little people are actually focusing on this thing. And also, of course, we have a lot of technological tools that I would recommend, like if you don't have a filter, you become filter and that stuff. But also, the point of view, can I bring it back? It's the wrong button. The point that we've been in this relationship with plants for a long time, and from the botany side of things, which is a huge interest of mine, pretty much everybody who studies it for long enough comes to a conclusion that we are not running things, but plants have actually used us for a long time to spread their genes. So I think in this symbiosis, we see many different angles. We often think that just we are exploding everything and using everything. But if you switch it to the plant's point of view, as Michael Pollan in his classic book, Botany of Desire, and there is a documentary series also about the subject, does. I think it's fascinating. And this brings me to my other point. For past 8 years, I've been really geeking into planting stuff, growing stuff, actually trying to observe and understand plants rather than just knowing stuff about them. And this is a really key idea. I think that we can learn about chemistry, about different things by reading them, but we don't understand the organism, what it actually is, unless we have a real connection kind of a relationship with it. So I encourage you to start growing stuff. It can be like one aloe vera plant inside of your home, something like that. But I grow stuff all the time because it teaches me a lot about what those organisms actually are. And also, this is a nice visualization about how plants communicate to us by single molecules, whether it was certain phytonutrients or vitamins or things of that nature. But they put on and put off certain genes. So they affect us at a very core level. And of course, epigenetics is a huge sector that we can think about when we think about how we relate with the environment. But I think that plants in general have changed a lot how we interact with our immediate environment. They give us immune responses, they modify everything inside of us, all that. And that brings me to water. And this is so fascinating to me. Because for years now, I've been looking at how deep people are willing to go with the variables in coffee. The mycotoxins, this and that, the height elevation, this and that. But nobody seems to talk too much about the quality of water. For the past decade, pretty much, I've been drinking spring water from the source. Now I'm not talking about some UV-treated, bottled spring water that was actually well water, but actually connecting with the source. And this is interesting because I've learned so much, not about the hydrological cycles of nature and all that, but about flow. That's the archetype of water, what it teaches you. Teaches you about solutions. It's a solvent. Teaches you about the flow. And whenever we actually observe these elements more deeply, we start to understand much more what they are showing inside of us. That's like what Kiki was saying. Okay, cold, it's a teacher. Water, it's a teacher. But when you go fully, kind of boundaries dissolve, you start to see yourself from a very different angle, not through some other person, other organisms, but through like very deep elementals. And water, the quality can be drastically different. Whether it was just tap water, filtered water, reverse osmosis water, all of these things. But what I recommend you, at least once in the next year, let's say, visit some spring, an actual spring. There is a website called findaspring.com where you can locate springs around your area. Because it's not just about kind of the feeling that you get when you actually collect the water that could have been underground for literally thousands of years in many cases. For me, that's kind of a totally different metaphor, because you're made of water. If that substance was under the earth, under the ground for a long time, that's a very different thing, because everything is polluted that we see around us, pretty much. There are DDT in, ice bears and stuff like that. But also, when you have spring coming up naturally, filtered through all of these segments of earth, the mouthfeel that you have in good spring water is because of the gases that have dissolved into the water. Because there's living bacteria, beneficial bacteria in that water. And that's also, if you UV treat, if you kill all the bacteria from the water, it's not living anymore, like literally. And if I think about the probiotics and microbiome and all that, if you actually link into your local spring, it's kind of a metaphor for giving life to everything without asking. It's like the altruistic archetype. I think that's something to be said. And also, this idea that when it comes to food, everything seems to point more and more that, processed food, all of these more or less just kind of diversify our gut health. The microbiome on our acid mantle, on our skin, in our mouth, all around us. So when it comes to food, when it comes to water, when it comes to air, these are all modulating what type of relationship we have with the microbes around us. And of course, we are mainly made of these microbes. So it kind of shapes who or what we are in a very deep level. So even with the nutrition side of things, I think some of the most beneficial foods that you can be eating are so-called symbiotics. So foods that contain both the probiotics and prebiotics. So kind of whole foods like sauerkraut and many other fermented foods. But the next element / kingdom would be earth. And that has also led me in the study of fungi. Because, of course, there are no trees without mushrooms, without fungi. Like 80% of the plants have symbiosis with the mycorrhizal fungi. So that's, as Paul Stamets puts it, the nature's internet. So if you actually tap into the ground, you start to learn more about communication, how things move. That's like the model that we took from there, from some level, and made it to the internet. Our technological version, how we kind of turn this archetypical idea inside out by creating technology. And also for me, it's almost funny, like Japanese word for forest bathing, shinrin-yoku, is kind of an antigen for this. So of course, if you're spending time inside of the cubicle, hyper-stressed like an animal in a zoo, where you are not connected to your natural needs, you start to suffer. It's like nature deficiency disorder from psychology. So it works as kind of meditation, cognitively. I think it's for your cognitive ergonomy very important that we go into nature, reshape the mental architecture that's bombarding us. And there are so many different symbiotic relations with the volatile organic compounds that plants are also producing that affect our limbic system and our nervous system. All of these things are linked. And I think that one of the points that I want to make is that the more we are connected to the sensory system, the more aware we are what's happening around us, the more we can pick these signals. Because we can see like microcosm in macrocosm. Wherever you put your focus, you start to go deeper and start to find things. That's again, I'm referring to Kiki, like if you strip out everything and just be with the cold, be with yourself, you start to see stuff. And you can train this with everything. When you go to nature, start to pick up more through your nose, sense more. So the last kingdom, before we flirt a little bit with technology, are mushrooms or fungi. And I found it fascinating. We share more genes with fungi than we share with plants. So the evolutionary history is much longer with us with fungi than with plants. And I think that we can learn a lot from them. Not just, as I said, around communication and how to relate to different things around us, but also how they affect our immune system. And that's actually that's a form of communication. Because these organisms, whether it was chaga mushroom, reishi mushroom, shiitake, maitake, Coriolus, cordyceps, these organisms have been here for a long time, fighting other fungi, viruses, bacteria, at the level that's much more stressful that basically any plant needs to take care of. So that's why, of course, most of our antibiotics are kind of a mushroom extract in essence. So these fungi are producing highly antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal chemicals. And if we use them as an ally, rather than just eating some mushrooms every now and then, actually taking that information, how they reprogram our microbiome, our intelligence to deal with certain pathogens, I find that very fascinating. That's one of the reasons I've been basically pretty immune for the past decade traveling the world. I really contribute that to bacteria and fungi. The last point is that Kevin Kelly pointed out that technology itself is kind of a kingdom of life. You could think that it has its own will. And now, of course, we are interacting with our environment more and more by the tools that we create, by everything that's kind of in between us and the environment. So you could think of technology as your skin. It's the outermost part that you relate to your world. And of course, now we see that we're really good at putting filters in between the immediate experience and what we're feeling. So I want to leave you thinking a little bit that now when we start to move into the age where we basically code everything to feed back into us, back to us, we turn our minds inside out, as McKenna put it. We're creating a very different environment. It's natural, but it's not natural in certain senses. So we're creating something completely new. And what I see in the essence of it as a huge mirror, we are externalizing our internal world by technology, but to make that look deeper into us, that's just one route. And we can also take that route where we just use everything around already and look deeper into us. How do we relate into our environment, other people, everything? How aware are you the situation around you right now? So we're moving into different phase, but I think that these are overlapping right now. Appreciate the biological needs that you have, the primal parts that we have. Expose yourself to cold, heat, the air quality, water quality. Connect with these things because they go deep. They're tattooed into our genome. But also be curious what you can do to actually create something completely new. My name is Jaakko. I hope you enjoyed this whole day. As Teemu put it earlier, you're welcome to join us tomorrow at upgraded offsite. There's probably still sauna is warm. There's some cold water. So if you feel a little lethargic, pick you up with those tools. And without further ado, thanks a lot.